Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Amud Yomi Shiur. We are in Metzia, Samech Hey Amud Aleph, Samech Hey Amud Aleph. Let's start from the first wide line here. Im Lagon B'Shneim Asal Mone Also. That's where we are. We're going to recap from yesterday, and I want to welcome everybody here in the room in Avos Shalom, Ramat B'Shemesh, and everybody on Torah Anytime, and anybody on YouTube that listens to us, watches us. Thank you. Let's go. Yesterday we learned about the two opposite form of ribis, one that's allowed and one that is not allowed. One is allowed because it's not ribis, and one that is not allowed because it is ribis. And we're talking here about early bird discount. That would be the topic of the shiur today. What did we say yesterday? We said that if a person wants to rent out his house and the rent goes normally according to halacha, schirus only gets paid at the end of the month. At the end of each month, that is when the landlord is supposed to be paid, not because it's just normal, because that's halacha. Halacha says with a posuk even that schirus is only always paid only at the end. Therefore, if you offer an early discount for those who pay early the entire year up front, that's allowed. Why? Because you actually are not asking for ribis, you're doing the opposite of ribis. Yeah, that's reverse ribis. You say if you pay me early, you pay less. That's okay. However, a similar but different case would be when in a mechira, if you want to sell your field for, let's say, 1,000, the person was coin of the field, he owes you money. When should he pay you? Ideally now. Normally now, should pay you now. And therefore, if the person wants to pay you now, that's great. How much would you pay for now? 1,000. And if you want to pay later, you want to pay at the end of the year, only then you'll pay me your debt, be 1,200. That's ribis. Why? Because the normal accepted and expected time of payment is now, the time of purchase. You want to delay that, then you're going out of the norm, out of halacha. It's not against halacha because we both agree, fine. But it's not the normal thing to pay much later. If you pay much later and I have to wait, the seller, have to wait for my money, that's called agar natar. These are the magic words which we always say here, agar natar. Waiting for the money and getting paid for waiting for the money, that is ribis, and that's not allowed. By the way, it's not ribis doraisa, it's ribis darabonon, because it's a sale. And not, one second, and not halva. It's a sale. And I just want to add one thing. A few people said over here, including you, you said that the logic of ribis, which is good logic, which works unless halacha said it's not allowed, would be, I'm renting you out my money. You have my money, right? Or you have money you owe me, and I'm waiting. Just like if I rent out my car, yeah, and you hire my car, I'm going to ask for money per day. I don't know, $5 a day. So too, when I rent out my money, my money is by you. I'm asking for extra money for the time my money was by you. This is very not only logical. Chavrusa told me yesterday that he heard that the Tshuvas Harashba that says that. Wow, the Tshuvas Harashba said that that's the way it works, unless halacha told it's not allowed. There's enough community for goyim. If you rent, let's say you malva to a goy with ribis that's allowed, then the way it should go is also with chirus with all kinds of halachic nafkaminas. But that's a logic. We can start today's material, but let's pause for some questions. Amar Rav Nachman, second wide line. Tarsha Shari. Rav Nachman said Tarsha is allowed. What's Tarsha? Tarsha, as we said yesterday, means that if I tell you, yeah, that the item that I want to sell you my tie, new tie today. Yeah, I want to sell you my tie for 20 shekels if you give me the money in a week's time on Purim. Then it will be worth 20. In my mind, I know that if I'm going to ask for my tie now, if I want to ask you for money now, I'll ask you for 15, okay? But I don't mention it. Tarsha means quiet, according to Sarishonim. Silent ribis darbanon is allowed, which means if I don't say now 15, later will be 20, yeah, if you chap it now, then that's allowed. Why is that allowed? There are two ways to understand it. One way, also with the Rashba, that is, it's not mechzik ribis. The whole thing is darbanon, right? Rabbanon are concerned that it looks like ribis. It's not ribis doraisa. Because I don't mention the low price now and the high price later, I sort of omit the low price and only talk about the high price. It doesn't look like ribis. That's one way. Another way to explain, and that's based on Tosfos before, as I told you yesterday, if there is a fixed price to the tie, and everybody in the world knows that such a tie secondhand costs 15 shekels, go online, go to the secondhand stores, to the gemachim, it's 15. It's well known, yeah? and I'm telling you, I'm not mentioning the 50. I'm only mentioning the 20. If you pay me next week, it's a joke. Of course, it's not allowed. Why? Because at the end of the day, it's known that this is a fixed price of 15, and I'm just talking about 20 of next week if you pay me. If you get, yeah. So then the reason why that's allowed, if when is it okay to have tarsha? If there's no fixed price, says Tosis before, Dafigo says, let's say it's a cow or a talis, things at the price, vary. There's no fixed price for that. Then I can say, listen, there is no price now. There is no price, right? Now, in my mind, I invented a price that I want 15 shekels for the tithe. It's just my idea. Many other people would say otherwise. So if I tell you next week I'm asking for 20, then I fixed the price on next week. I turned the mechira into schirus. Just like if by schirus you pay me in the middle of the year, the end of the year is normal. And if I'm asking for the price now that's less than normal, that's discounted, it's okay. It's reverse ribis. So to over here, when I didn't mention the price of 15 today, and nobody else did, and nobody else knows about it, and I only spoke about being paid next week 20 shekels, then even if you say, hey, Akiva, wait a second, I'll give you now 15, that's okay, right? Because you reversed it. It's like schirus. That's like early discount, and that's okay. That's the other way of understanding it. But in any event, Tarsha is allowed. Now comes the Gemara, and we've seen this yesterday. We're recapping. Esve Rami Barchama, Rav Nachman. Rami Barchama asked Rav Nachman. Rami Rav Ukvar Barchama asked Rav Nachman. They both, either one, challenged Rav Nachman, the Dayan, about this Tarsha. They asked him from the Mishnah, what did they see in the Mishnah? The Imle Goyren says who? The seller to the buyer, if you'll pay me next year, what's Legoyren? After an entire agricultural cycle of you making money from the wheat, at the end of next year, you'll pay me b'shnei masar moneh. Instead of paying me 100, you'll pay me 12, whatever. Instead of 1,000, pay me at 1,200. Yeah. Then also, it's not allowed. You see that even if the person only mentioned next year's price, it's also bad. That's a havamina. You only mention next year's higher price, it's still not okay against what you're saying. Omer lei, the obvious answer is no, that was not the case of the Mishnah. Osam katzlei, hochaloi katzlei. No. In the Mishnah, he was kotzetz, he made him a clear price for today. And he mentioned it first. If you pay today, you pay 1,000. You pay next year, 1,200. That's bad news. That's a very not nice increase, like ribis. In the case of Tarsha, he conveniently omitted what? Today's price, and only mentions the next week's price or next year's price. That's okay. For me, the normal price in my world, and I'm allowed to because there's no fixed price in the market, my price is next year, 1,200. Next month, whatever, next. Now, if you pay me now, you pay less, that's kilu yor chidush. That comes on top of that. That's kilo discount from the normal. And therefore, it's okay. Amar of Popet. Now we're going to have two other cases of Tarsha. One will be Gepaskin La'alocha, and one will not be La'alocha. No, Tarsha doesn't mean a discount. Tarsha comes out like a discount. Tarsha means silent ribis. With that, a nice title for the YouTube today. Tarsha means that the ribis is silent, meaning I do not mention today's price and the later price. I only mention the later price as a normal. Mimele, if you pay me now the lower one, it's like a discount. I turn things around, and that's why it's okay. Now comes Rav Pope. Now, a little bit about Rav Pope. Usually in the Yeshiva world, in Yeshiva you don't learn about the color of the eyes of Abaye. Like you don't learn so much about who the Amoraim were, what they did in their private lives. But about Rav Pope, it's important to know before we start the sugya, two very important things. First of all, we're going to know them very soon. First of all, Rav Pope was a very rich man. That's why at the end of every Masechta, when you say the Siyum, right? Because he was a rich man and he would provide his 10 sons with nice Siyumim. That's why we mention him at the Siyum. He would make them nice, fancy Siyumim. And also his profession was a beer maker, beer merchant. Guinness beer from Ireland, maybe, I don't know, maybe a different one. But Lamaisa, the beer was his profession, was Sheikhar. With that in mind, let's learn about Rav Pope. Rav Pope says Rav Pope, Tarsha didi shari. The tarsha that I give my lekuchos, my customers, is allowed. What was his deal? And before we can't go on without Baal Peh now. Let me fill you in. Rav Pope's deal was as follows. Rav Pope was actually a Heilige Amoira who wanted to help people. What did Rav Pope do? Rav Pope would sell his beer in Tishrei, when it was cheap, yeah, he would let people do the Mashicha, be koine the chavios on Tishrei, in Tishrei, during Tishrei, when it is cheap, but now people would not have money to pay him right away. Let's say a barrel of shecher in Tishrei costs 100 zuz, what that's a lot, yeah, costs 10 zuzim, yeah. And in Nisan, there was always an increase before Pesach. Everybody wants to drink beer before Pesach, right? I'm joking, yeah. Before Pesach. In Nisan, the shecher, kosher Pesach, would be worth 200, or whatever, not 20, let's, okay? Now, he's now telling them, you can take the ribis, take now, and pay me later, pay me Nisan the price of Nisan. That's like Talsha, yeah? In other words, he doesn't tell them you can pay now 100 and pay 200 later. He only tells them, take it now. I'm a nice guy. Take it now, drink it now, not on Pesach, drink it on Sukkot, now on Tishrei, and pay me Nisan the price of Nisan. Now, it's not so simple. That's a Talsha, right? Because if he said now 100, yeah, if you pay me now it's 100, pay me later it's 200, that will be treif, of course. But he doesn't mention the 100, he only mentions the 200, and that's why it's okay. However, if Papa says, I don't always think Tarsha is such a good idea. My Tarsha is okay, says Rav Papa. Why? What's so special about Rav Papa's Tarsha? Let's continue in the Gemara now. My timer. What's so special about Rav Papa's special deal? Says the Gemara, Shechrai loy posid. As far as I'm concerned, my shechar, my beer, doesn't get spoiled, doesn't get ruined when it stays in the cellar for another 6 months, which means I have no interest to sell it now whatsoever. The beer stays nice, fresh, and cool for the next 6 months just as much. I can sell it now, or I could actually give it to the guy 6 months later. And another factor, zuzi lo tzarichna. Because I'm rich, I don't need the money, which means there are two reasons why a person would be quick to sell his merchandise now. A, it goes bad. Nobody wants to stay with extra stock. That I've heard from business people. That's one of the nightmares of every business person. Yeah, to just get stuck with a lot of things in stock get stuck in the stock. Yeah, without being able to do anything with it. Clothes, food. Yeah, over the date is due. Okay, the expiry date, and therefore says oh Papa, I'm cool. My chavios of shecher can stay the 6 months will be just as nice. Secondly, why would a person sell something now for cheap? Strapped for cash. But he's not strapped for cash. He's a rich man. And therefore he says, now you have to be very careful you define this. I'm avoiding questions here. Of course, a rich person cannot take ribis and say, that ribis of $200,000 that I took for me is nothing. I have 100 million. Can't say that. Obviously not. Don't even think that way. Rav Papa is saying something else here. He's saying by me, not only I don't mention the current price of Tishrei, I really don't care. I have no interest whatsoever to sell it now. By me, hen mitzad the alacrity, the need to sell it quickly now, mitzad the money or mitzad the merchandise. No, I'm absolutely 1,000,000% fine to sell it in 6 months' time. So the sell of now is really, it's not just a game of words. I'm keeping silent, but really in my heart, I'll say it better. Let's say I'm strapped for cash. I'm so chas v'sholem doing so bad. I need 15 shekels. In my heart of hearts, I daven to Hashem. Oh Hashem, please, let him buy my suit, my tie now for 15 shekels. Yeah, but I just don't mention it. But inside, I want you to buy it now. Says Rav Papa, no, my tasha is really good because I really don't want it now. And not that I don't want, I don't care. I really have no interest of selling it now for cheap. When I say I'm selling it to you later for 6 months, I'm really, absolutely fine with selling it later. The early sale is really not in my radar, not even in the hearts of my hearts. And continues Rav Papa talking. Anahu de ka'avidna milsa. I do a milsa. Milsa here over means a favor. I do a favor, Gabi Lokech. I'm just being nice to them. I'm being absolutely nice and menschlich to them. What do you want from me? They grab the chavis now. They did Mashiach to the chavis now, and all these avrechim and people, they're enjoying the beer in their sukkah. I'm waiting for the money, and I'll get more money, but it's not ribis. It's not called a garnatar, because by me to get the money now, nishka chiluk b'chlal. I'm not getting anything from that. It's not in my scale to get less now or more later. More later is the only thing I have in mind. And mimela, what? That's not called ribis b'chlal, not even the rabbanon, and that's a real tarsha. Omar le Rav Sheshes, 1 second. Omar Rav Sheshes, Veda Rav Yidin Rav Popet. of Sheshes, the son of Rabbi, challenged Rav Papa and said, "My Chazi Mar, why do you, Rabbi Mar, why is Kvoidoi the Kaozas Botel Didach? Why do you follow just your own logic in your own mind? Zil Basar did who? Think what happens in the minds of who and in the pockets of the customers. The Ilu Habulu Zuzi, if they had money now, Avushakli Kihashta, they would have taken it like now and pay 100, not 200. Mitzidam, they did what? It's not a preferable thing that they have to pay 200 later. They would like to pay half price, 100 or whatever, now, right? Because really they don't have money. Only because they don't have money, they say, okay, we'll pay later. If you're a millionaire, a billionaire, you'd like to pay everything straight away, not having all these credit card bills of 16 tashlumim, right? True. Elamai, just don't have it. Hashta the leislahu. Now that they don't have mimela, now they don't have it. Zazuzi, they don't have money. Shakli kiyukra dil kamei, which means this is a very good classical case of a one-side ribis, not sad echod, but the ribis is not mashpia on the malve, only on the loive, which means those people, the customers in the shop, they come to you. As far as they're concerned, they would like to have it now, and you let them have it now. And it's really, really nice of you, Papa. But Lamaisa, they would like to pay you now. And you say no, because you wait longer, not that he minds Rav Papa, but they gain from waiting, right? They're given a leeway of 6 months, and at the end of the 6 months, they'll pay more. So it's true that as far as you're concerned, now or later it does make a difference whatsoever. But for them, it does. For them, it does make a difference. Mimele, we really say Rav Papa is not la'aloch. Even if just the customer is the one who's marviach, who's gaining from the fact that he's allowed to have his money more time, and then at the end of the day he'll have to pay more, that alone is considered as ribis. And not like Rav Papa said. This is what we're saying now. Yeah, if you have a question, we can hear a little bit of questions now. The next case, the following case is another tarsha, and that needs a lot of reading. We're going to see Rashi inside. The second to last Rashi. I'll say a bit about that. We have the little of thing over here. I don't know how much you can see it on the screen, but let's see. Okay. Amar Rav Chama. Says Rav Chama. Tarsha didi vadei shari. The tarsha, my silent ribis, is for sure absolutely fine and okay. Now, we're not going to continue. We have to see Rashi. And then we'll see it in the diagram. Amar Rav Chama tarsha didi vadei shari. Look at Rashi. Amar Rav Chama. It looks as if it's the last Rashi in the page, but it's not. It's the last one in the narrow lines. The Amar Rav Chama, you have it? The Dibar Maschil? Says Rashi the following story. Who was Rav Chama? Rav Chama was a person who employed, so to speak, agents or franchise people. Moicha Prakmatya Hoyo. Moicha Prakmatya. Rav Chama was a person who dealt with what? With Choira. He would sell all kinds of goods. Let's say what? Shoes. Let's choose commodity, shoes. Choose the shoes. Which means, yeah, he would live in cheap town where things are very cheap, and they really are sold normally for 5 shekel a pair of shoes, yeah, and he would sell them to his agents. Let's call them agents, or not, they're not really, like we'll see soon. He sold them to his people, to his sellers for 7 shekels, okay, for cheaper, for a higher price, which was the price in a different town, which was more expensive. Yeah, this is in a Netivot, it cost 5 shekels. In a Savion, it's 7 shekels. He's selling them here higher, and soon you'll know why. He sells it to them like the higher price. He waits for them. Now, what did he gain so far? Well, so far, he did not get the money from them. He did not get anything. He's trusting his agents or his / customers. You'll see it's half-half. And he sold them something for 5 shekels, expecting to get 7. Because, why? Why expecting 7? Now, don't even talk about ribis for now. Let's just get the case first, okay? Then the halachas. Now, and he waits for them. They didn't give him anything yet in advance. He just trusts them to be nice. I made it as if it's physical. They take it up the hill. It's not really up the hill, yeah? They take it up to a place, to the expensive, fancy place. They take it to Savion. They take us to the fancy place, and now, and how much do they sell it there for? 7. There it's normal. Yeah, in Savion, everything costs 7 and not 5. So what they spent, now they are getting. They're selling the same shoes further to the fancy people who buy it for 7. Okay. Now, it's very soon you'll see why it's important to know this is under the price of Rav Chama. In other words, when those people go, it's very important to know when those people go from the cheap place to the expensive place, they're schlepping it, they're taking it there to the fancy place, but it's under Rav Chama's achrayus. If anything breaks, anything happens, anything problematic happens, it's Rav Chama's responsibility, which means they're just his agents. They are not really shluchim, they're not owners, they're not even lakuchas. At that moment, when they take it to up the hill, when they take it to the expensive place, they're just agents working for him. They're wearing the t-shirts, ravchama.com. What? They're a cheetah. Okay, right. Okay. Vehu mekabel olov, and he accepts some zachrais derech behalicha on the way to there. Now, what happens when they finally come to the expensive place? Valekuchois, meaning his lekuchois, meaning his people whom he sold it to, and up until now they're not yet the owners. Mistakrim beprakmatya shlokrin sham b'moisov. Tov. They sold the 7. Now they didn't sell it for 7. They sold it for 8. Why? Because 7 is the price that the wholesalers sell, but they're retailers. They sell it straight to the fancy lady. Yeah, 7 is the wholesale price in an expensive place. They sell it for 8, so they made a buck. Yeah, they made the mechira. Now, even more, we must say that also soon you'll see why. Now he's not expecting 7; he's expecting 8. He sold them for 7. He wants to make a gain, a profit. So they'll give him back 8. With that 8, they made more business. That's their business. Excuse the pun. They made more money. Okay. Now they're going back home. Going back home. How much does he expect to get back? 8. Yeah. So they made 8 shekels over there, 1 shekel extra, which will give Rav Chama the whole wholesaler. They made their own money chutz from that. Leave that aside. That's their own business. The Chavrusa said, could be the chicken lays eggs all its life, or a cow that has milk. There's ongoing profit. Don't worry about them. Now they're coming back to him with 8 shekels. Now, what happens on the way back? Now they bring the money that they made, or at least some of it. Where did they bring it? Back to Rav Chama, back to cheap town of Rav Chama. Okay, now the achrais achazoro alehem. Achrais achazoro alehem. On the way back, it's completely theirs. On the way back, it is their thing. They're not agents anymore. They are like owners. They are the owners of the money, which is really like borrowers. In other words, it's their responsibility. On the way back from the expensive place where they made the extra dime, it's their responsibility. They're not working for him because, as Rashi will say now, they came, and soon you see the punchline here, they came at the kabli alayu achrayes loy havi mil v'gabayu ad shaprakmaten im keres ven v'kabli mamois. Let me explain to you. It goes like this. Yeah, thank you, Zoom. Okay, Zoom is trying my midas today. Okay, now listen to this. I'll tell you the one word here will explain everything. Let's explain the story. He's giving them money. How much? He lent them a pair of shoes, so to speak. I would say it's alvo, right? For 7 shekels, he gave them. They didn't give him anything back. Eventually, they'll give him 8. Maybe that's ribis. He gave them 7. That's what he really gave them, not 5. And they're coming and giving him at the end of the day 8. They gave him 8 at the end of the day. Ribis? Says the Gemara, no. Why isn't it ribis? Because of this. Because on the way to the sale, here was a big sale. In fancy place, that's when they had a really big sale, right? When they went to the sale place, they were not borrowing from him. They're working for him. They were his workers. They were his shliach, yoda richta. They were mamish agents for him and no independence whatsoever. Once the money, they gave the shoes to the lady in the fancy place. How much did the people pay them? 8. Oh, that moment was the moment of loan. When they got the 8 into their hands, that money was a moment of transformation. And from agents, they turned into borrowers. They turned into, it's not really owners. It's more like borrowers here. Here there were loivim. Here there are loivim. They borrowed the money from him. Now, when the shoes were transformed into 8 shekel cash, that 8 shekel cash is what he ki'ilu lent them. because only at this moment they became achroi. They became now the people in charge of the money, which means that they're loivim. If I lend you money, it's your responsibility to look after it and give it back to me. Because Lamaise at that moment it was 8, and all the way through it was 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. No ribis. He delayed the ribis. Before it was silent ribis, now we have delayed ribis. It's also silent because he didn't talk about the 7. Let me repeat. Rav Chama sells them shoes, nice. He didn't really sell them. At the beginning, there was agents. Okay. Now, up the hill, they're going up to where? To fancy place. Those shoes of 7 will be sold for 8. The rest is the history. Ooh, at that happy moment, when they got the cash into their hands and not the shoes, 8 shekels per pair, those 8 shekels are now borrowed by them from Rav Chama. Yeah. And those 8 shekel, you know what? They stay 8 shekel all the way through down the hill until it gets to the pocket of Rav Chama. That's why it's not ribis. It's not ribis because the 7 he gave them wasn't a loan. Because if I give you 7 and as you go up the hill with the 7 shekels in your, not 7 shekels, 7 shekels worth schoira in your pocket, I'm responsible. That's not called being malve. A malve is not responsible what happens in the pocket of the loive. Mimela, the halva was delayed until the moment of sale, and then it was 8 and stayed 8 the entire life, the entire journey back, the entire leg of the journey back to him. It stays 8 and it's not ribis. It's actually simpler than it looks. 1 minute, please. Let me just get the whole thing together. Says the Gemara, continues the Gemara with another reason. We have to know the Gemara adds a reason. My time, why is it that Rav Choma's Tarsha deal is okay? Nicha lehu, it's good for them when they walk up the hill to where? To fancy place to sell it, and they're holding the shoes in their hands, it's good for them, the leiku bilshusi, that they should be working for me, and the shoes will be with my ownership. You know why? The kolhecha de kaazli, wherever they go, shav kilu mechsa. When they go to sell on the way to the selling place, they go there and they represent Rav Chama. They're not working on their own. They represent Rav Chama. Rav Chama is Talmid Chacham. So the tax authorities, the Jewish tax authorities, they leave the Talmid Chachamim alone. The Gemara in Bava Basra Ches Amud Aleph, Rambam Hilchas Talmud Torah Perek Hey, they say what? A Talmid Chacham, you don't tax him, don't ask him for taxes, right? Halavai, yeah. And what else is the Maila? V'nokot lo shuka. Also, whenever they want to open their stall, they want to sell in the market, they get the right of way to sell before anybody else. Because the Gemara says in Bava Basra Chaf Beis Amud Aleph, the Gemara says that a Talmid Chacham that has something to sell, you let him sell before anybody else opens the shop. So because they have the advantage of representing Rav Chama, they have all those extra rights, those extra zchusim benefits that a Talmid Chacham has. Mimela, in that case, they prefer being working under me. If that's why it's not ribis. Frag the Rishonim, Toisas Ritva. Why did you have to add that? I just liked my child. Why did you have to add the fact that on the way there they represent Rav Chama? We just explained why it's not ribis. It's delayed, right? Because the sale was kilo on hold on a delay button, and the sale will mean what? Them becoming achroi, kicking in, and therefore they became the loivim. So the alva was 8 and stays 8 all the time. Why do you have to tell me that on the way there they're happy to work for him because of all the benefits of working for Talmid Chacham? Favos. Rishonim here and there. At the end, we looked at the Ritva. The Ritva says one line which answers everything. You remember we spoke about Ribis Mukdemes? Remember? If I know I want to borrow money from Yitzchak tomorrow, and all of a sudden I'm strangely nice to you, and I start giving you a gift, and give you stuff, and give you this, and give you tea, and what? And all of a sudden, tomorrow, I'm going to borrow from you. That's a problem. Yeah? Ribis Mukdemes Midorabonon. Ribis that's pre-milve is also osur. Very good. Says the Ritva, if they walk up the hill sweating and working hard for Rav Chama, knowing that they will get the delayed halva from him over here, the delayed halva. Did I say delayed ribis? It's not delayed ribis. It's delayed halva. It's delayed halva. I was wrong. Knowing that the halva will come once they sell the shoe to the fancy people over there, they will get, and that will be their money Balvo. And that's why they're sweating and schwitzing and doing the work for him. That's like an early ribis. That's a prepaid ribis, and that's not allowed. For that, we have to be mekazez. Learn that Hebrew word, please. We have to be mekazez. We have to balance it out by them benefiting before the halva for working for Rav Chama. Working for Rav Chama means they have the rights, like working for a big company. Whoa, he has the Microsoft logo on his t-shirt. Or lahavdil over here, once they work for Rav Chama, mimela they have the benefits, and that balances the fact that they give him service by schlepping it up the hill up to the fancy place, but it's balanced by the fact that they also enjoy the fact that they also work for him. So that is tit for tat, that's balanced out, that's zeroed out, that's canceled. Mimela, nothing happened before, and the real story only begins here when they sold this merchandise from 7 to 8, and they got 8 into their hands. Now they're responsible. Now the kilo borrowed. They borrowed 8. And how much will they give back? 8. My math is not so great, but I think 8 equals 8. There's no ribis. And that's why it's okay. Questions, please, if you have, and if you don't have, even better. Okay, yeah. I'm listening.
At the very start of the journey uphill,
Yeah.
Rav has shlichus. Yeah, the agents working for him,
Yeah.
and he gives them merchandise on credit. Now, if he gives them merchandise on credit, that means the.
Well, I just want to clarify something here. Obviously, there is an element of ribis derabanan. It's a sale. It's not halva, true. However, when Rav Chama gave them something worth 5 or 7 or whatever, and he's waiting, he did not get anything from them. No, it's not like regular Makolit guy who bought from the wholesaler and paid him, right? I assume there's right away transfer, right? And then he makes a profit. That's fine. Here, Rav Chama was very patiently waiting. This is like a board game. You should invent a ribis board game. At the beginning of the monopoly over here, he gave them something worth 5, expecting 7 at least, right? And and then he waited for the money for a long time. And at the end of the journey, they gave him 8. Wow. That's a garnatar and getting more money at the end of a journey that took time. That alone already schmecks of ribis. Why is it okay? Because really we say that once that 7 was turned into 8 already, only then they borrowed really. Because beforehand, the keilu delayed reaction halva. It's like those things, Shabbos things, which I really don't like, you press, it's a delayed reaction button. That's what they did here. All the way there, delayed reaction. They pressed the button, the halva didn't really start, and it really didn't start. It's not shtick, because he's a chroy, right? Not them. Now the halva kicked in at the time of the sale, the seder. They made 7 or 8 or 9. They come back with 7 or 8 or 9. Bevakasha. So then he lent them later than the real physical action, right? And then he was X, and he got back X. That's not ribis. Otherwise, he would have been agar natar. And yes, my friend, you know what? If you are a frum businessman and you work and you're like a big shop, you work between a wholesaler and a retailer, there could be such questions. Yes. Excuse me. Yes. If you're a supermarket and you buy from Tnuva, I don't know how it works, and Tnuva is waiting for the money for a long time, and later on you pay them more for whichever reason. That I'm not a politic halacha, but yes, who said it's right? Sorry, maybe it's wrong. Each case lagufa. Every businessman should really consult with Rabbonim all the time about inyan ribis. Absolutely so. Excuse me. Questions are flowing here. Weiter. Okay, now in the next page, the Gemara is going to give us some halochas. The hilchasa. The Gemara is going to summarize and tell us a few halachas, meaning hilchasa ke Rav Chome. Who's Rav Chome? The one we just saw now. Hilchasa ke Rav Chome. What did Rav Chome say? That if you make a delayed halva, it's a delayed halva. You press the delay button, and the loiva only because it's not a loiva. It's really like half a koina. The other business person was an agent. And only when he makes more money, the raise in the money will only after there's more money, then he becomes the loive. As I said before, it's as if the ribis precedes the halva. Then it's okay. That's halacha. By the way, Tosis points out halacha is also like Rav Nachman about tarsha. Tarsha is also good, which means if I silently don't mention the current price, I only mention the later price, then it's okay. Yeah. even if you give me the less price for earlier, that's fine. Who's Rabbi Lozo? Oh, back many million years ago. A few days ago, what did we see? Rabbi Lozo, what did he say? That ribis goes very good, goes back with the yonim. Yeah, if you borrowed the ribis and you gave back the ribis, the malva is supposed to give in Beis Din the halva to the loive, as opposed to Rabbi Yochanan that says you don't have to. What's Rabbi Yanai? The Omar Malihen Malid Mehen. Rabbi Yanai said as follows. Rabbi Yanai said, if you remember, remember the story of the person who sells, and I keep forgetting the halachic term, in the case of no, not Shuma. In the case when you sell something and you sell it now and you're going to get paid more later, right? We said, when is it okay? Yeshloi, right? If you have the schoira in your place, then if I ask you to stay with the old price, even though, yeah, I'm going to get it later throughout the year, the schoira, as long as you have the item in your store or even other people have it, it's okay. Those machlokas Rabbi Yanai and Rav. Rabbi Yanai said, Malihen Malidmein. If I gave you 100 shekel for a bag of wheat, and then in 2 months' time I said, where's my bag of wheat, which now may be worth 120, yeah, and have the rights of over one bag of wheat, then we said it's okay, you can get the bag of wheat. Everyone agrees to that because he had the bag of wheat right from the start, just got more expensive naturally, so to speak, in his reshus. However, Rav said, let's say that Rav, not Rabbi Yanai, Rav said, let's say the person, the wholesaler, says, I'm sorry, I still don't have the wheat. I feel so bad. I'll give you money. Instead of 120 that the wheat is worth now, I'll give you 120. Says Rav, no, that makes like ribis already. You gave 100 cash and you're getting back 2 months later 120 cash, even though it's really okay because it's really the same worth of bag of wheat, but the bag of wheat is virtual. It's a cryptocurrency. It's not really here. Yeah. And Mimela, what? Says Rav, if you gave cash and you got back cash 120, shmeks like ribis to me. Mashenk and Rabbi Yanai said it's okay. Malihen malidmein. Just like I gave 100 shekel for what? Not for 100. I gave for a bag of wheat. You pointed that out very nicely then, remember. For a bag of wheat. Now the bag of wheat became 120. I'm entitled to get a bag of wheat. You don't have a bag of wheat? Give me 120 cash. Instead, according to Rabbi Yanai, that's okay. Because at the end of the day, it's not really money for money. It's really a virtual bag of wheat which is changing hands here. Malihen malidmein. I don't care if it's the actual bag or even the money. That's according to some Rishonim. The other explanation of Rishonim, I'm not going there right now. Next Mishnah. So we see a few halachas here, and now we are into the next Mishnah. Says the Mishnah. Let's continue. We're a lot behind schedule. I'll be welcome questions at 10:25 or online. Says the Mishnah. Oh, now we have the following case. What happens when you buy your house, as is common in installments? People don't always and usually don't have the entire amount right now. You have some of the amount now and some of the amount that some of the sum you're going to pay later in order to get your dream home. Says the Mishnah. A person sold the other one the field. Now the buyer gave the seller some of the money. The Omer Loi said the seller to the buyer, whenever you want, bring the rest of the money. How much does the house worth? A nice little apartment in Shalim, 5 million shekel. He gave him 2.5 million. Yeah, very nice, modest amount. Yeah, and now when you give me the other 2.5 million for the little cutesy house in Yerushalayim, then what? The toil es shelcha. Then you get the apartment. When will the apartment be his? When the payment was finished. And let's say the first 2.5 he paid in Adar Tafshin Pei Gimel, that's today. And the second payment will be in 6 months' time, let's say in Elul Tafshin Pei Gimel. When will the house be his? In Elul Tafshin Pei Gimel? Well, that's one script, but that's not the script of the Mishnah. The script of the Mishnah is that once you pay me in Elul, then retroactively, what's called in French, lemafreya, the house will be yours from Adar. Now, you have to know a few things here. It's not a very easy case, I'm sorry to tell you. So listen carefully, and maybe our whiteboard will be a friend too. But first, listen, Balpe. The story is as follows. Now is Adar. You gave me 2.5 million. That's a nice start. Okay, I'm still living there. I'm the owner. I'm selling it to you. Once you pay me in Elul another 2.5, then what? Then the house will be completely yours already from today. already from today, then the house will be yours. Why did they do it that way? Because whatever. In other words, yeah, lemafrea, the house was nigla lemafrea, was discovered, so to speak, came out, was yours right from the start, from the beginning of the deal. What happens if you fail with your last payment and you don't give me the other 2.5 million in Elul? Then what? Then the whole thing falls apart, and I will have to give you back 2.5 million. Yeah, the whole thing will fall apart. The whole deal will just fall through, not go, because you failed to pay, even down to the last shekel. And if you didn't pay everything, then the whole thing was gone. I'll stay in my house, no sale. You gave me 2.5. Don't worry, I'll give it back to you. And there are 3 different lawyers and contracts and everything you want. It's all there. Esther, you're not allowed to do that. Why aren't you allowed to do that? I'll tell you why. Says Rashi as follows. I'll probably have to end up making a chart today, but it's really, really not so hard. The story is as follows. Think of the 2 scenarios, yeah, of the 2 scenarios of what? Of whether he will buy or he won't buy, right? Either he will pay in the future, retrospectively the house was always his, right, from other, right? Or he won't pay, and then if he won't pay, then what? Then he really came out that he lent me money, right? He get the 2.5 million. I used it already. I used it. I'll have to give it back to him in case the deal falls through. I'm the seller all the time. I'm the seller, yeah. And what? The 2.5. If in 6 months' time he's not going to come up with a payment, no deal. And then the 2.5 retrospectively were just a milve, which I really benefited with that 2.5. Invested in another city, cheaper place, and I'll give you the 2.5. I'm an honest guy. Now let's say it's an apartment. Okay, the Gemara says a field. A field is a place where you eat the fruit. An apartment is a place. How do you eat the fruit of the apartment? Rent. Let's say it's an apartment for rent. The problem is neither the seller nor the buyer can enjoy and benefit from the fruit of the field because it will always be ribis. Scenario number one. Mr. Buyer will come up with the money, okay, in 6 months' time. Okay, good. Yeah, fine. He will pay me in 6 months' time. Retroactively, we all know that from Adar, it was really his apartment. Let's say I, the original owner, stay there, rent it out, make chasana parties there, rent it out for all kinds of things, events, and I rent it out, and I cash the money. It will come out to be ribis. Why ribis? Like I told you before, Tzvi. Because why? Because really, I'm a nice guy. I waited 6 months for 2.5 million shekels. Not everyone does that. I'm nice. Therefore, and at the end of 6 months, will discover that really all the time the apartment belonged to the buyer. I, the seller, because I'm so nice and I waited for my money, I feel like I have the right to eat the fruit or rent out the place because I waited for the money. Aganata, ribis. The other scenario, let's say he does not come with what? Let's say he does not come with the money. And the whole thing will fall apart. Not his apartment. It's mine all along. Hey, 2.5. Yeah, okay. Be quiet. I'll give you your 2.5 million. Really, it was just a loan. Just a loan. Lemafrea, I came out. He just lent me money because we're not really a loan, but Lamaisi was because the 2.5 million really what were ki'ilu temporary by me. I use them. It's tantamount to milve, midrabanan maybe. And therefore, now, if he lent me money, if he's going to eat the fruit, now, then comes out what? I allow him to eat the fruit of my house, because if the deal falls through, it was my house all along, right? It was my house all along because the deal fell through. He's not a buyer. He's stam a lender. If he's a lender and he will eat the fruit, then comes out what? A lender eating extra fruit from the borrower? I think that's called ribis in Old French. Therefore, if you really make the cheshbon, there are 4 scenarios. 2 out of 4 scenarios here are what? Possibility of ribis. Therefore, don't play with fire and don't make such a deal. By the way, there is a solution. The Gemara is going to say, but Al Ponov, the Mishnah says, nobody can eat the fruit, not the malve, because not a malve, not the buyer, not the seller, because each side there's a certain 50% prediction that one of them is benefiting the other, either the moicher for waiting for the money, or the koine for lending him something. So whichever side eats it, there's a 50% chance of the person eating the fruit is really benefiting from ribis. I'll explain it more tomorrow. Okay, we have to continue the Mishnah, and as we go along the Gemara, it will be even clearer. I promise you. Okay, we'll also have it in chat. I prefer no questions now. Unless what? No. Thank you, but no. Thank you for actually saying it. I'm not upset with you for asking the question now. No. As opposed to Gzela, what about Gzela? How can I sit in someone else's field? Is that okay? Why only Ribis? The answer is simple. If I take something from you and we don't know whether it belongs to you or to me, I can always return Gzela. Ribis, we said before, in Daf Samech Beis, Samech Gimel, we said there, Ribis, says Rove, Al Minas Lachzir is Osur. You're not allowed to take Ribis even if you know you return it. Am I allowed to eat chazer? And I promise you I'll throw it up. The guy's bulimic. I don't know how to say it in English. And bulimic, yeah. Usually it's a she. So what? Eat chazer and throw it up. Doesn't work, says Ritva. It's not my, don't look at me. It's Ritva's explanation, yeah? In other words, ribis doesn't work even if you'll give it back. It's treif. Yeah, can you eat chazer and then regret? No, that's the answer to your question, which is actually a good question. Thank you. Continues the Mishnah. Hilvau al sodehu. Now comes another case. Spot the differences. Comes the second case. What's Hilva al Sadeu? Here it's a clear halva. Halva. I lend you what? 5 million shekels. And in return, what do I want? Well, it's called mortgage. It's called collateral. It's called mashkon. It's called shibud. You have a nice 5 million apartment in Shalim? I want it now as what? As a collateral. However, it's not just a collateral. It's more than a collateral. The Omer Law, he told him, answers the question for a few days ago, 3 years. He said, what's the time limit? He says, if in 3 years' time you don't come up with the 5 million, Areshali, I like that Rechavia place over there, the little one. Yeah, suits me. So for now, there is an apartment there or a field that is potentially mine. I'm the lender. Yeah. If you give me back the money, then the field was really belonging to the borrower all the time. It was just mortgaged as a warning sign. Mashenken, if you don't come up with the money, retroactively all the time it belonged to who? To the malve. To the malve. Sure. Yeah. Bank took the house. Lo leinu. Happens. Yeah. That's what happened. So all the time it belonged to the bank. All the time it belonged to the malve. Then it's his field and it's okay. As we said before, we made baitus benut zunin. If a person does that, now you tell me if you remember what we said before. Can the malva eat the fruit all the time? No. The malva cannot eat the fruit. Why? If the house will end up his, right? Sorry. No, excuse me. If the house does end up his, I got confused. If the lawyer pays back in a year's time, in 3 years' time, right? Pays in full the entire 5 million, plus the malva ate up all the fruit for 3 years, good luck to his diet, or he sold all the fruit, then he's getting ribis. He got all 5 million, plus all the fruit that he ate. That's usur. That's why it's usur. But it's not usur to do that. It's okay to do it as long as the one who sits in the field and eats it is who? The loive. The loive lives in his house. It's very, very simple. If the loive lives in the house, rents it out, eats the fruit, sells the fruit, that's not a problem. A loive can get extra, right? The loive is fine. Whether the soda will end up being his or being the malves, the loive is allowed to take extra. The malve is not allowed to take extra. That's why it's okay. And if you remember, we said according to Rav, it's even okay for the malve to take it because my friend tzadechat beribis. We'll talk about it later. There's no buyer here. There's potential buyer. No, the malve is a potential buyer. The malve now has it as collateral, as a maybe, twilight zone. If he fails to pay, then retroactively it will be the malve, and then he will be ki'ilu, an early buyer. And that's really okay as long as the loiva sits there. Yeah. Why? The loiva can eat more. Machpat. Let's continue. We need to get some momentum. We're not going to do the Amud today. I understand it's a difficult Gemara, but let's go on. Says the Gemara. Mi oichel peireth. The Gemara is asking a question. In the first case of the Mishnah, of the sale that may go through, may not go through, mi oichel peireth. Who's the one who eat the fruit in the field? Well, what did we just say now? Nobody, right? We just explained by, Eshvamaim that nobody can have the fruit, neither the buyer nor the seller, because there's always a maybe that somebody's giving something beribis. That was in general the picture. Who eats the fruit? Ravuna Amar, Ravuna seems to be against the Mishnah. Ravuna says, yes, the seller can eat the fruit. Okay, question. Rav Anan Omar. Rav Anan gives a very, very practical solution. Mishalshin esaperos. Look, beautiful. Mishalshin esaperos. What's mishalshin? Put it in an escrow account. Very good. There's no problem. Escrow, yeah, I know to spell it even. Yeah, in other words, very good. I thought that would be the solution you're going to suggest. Very good. There's no Isser Doraisa. Nobody's eating chazir when I say pay now, pay the other half later, retroactively will be yours from now. All is good. The only problem is who's going to eat the fruit, who's going to get the rent that comes every month. You know what? Put the rent in the escrow account. Pay a shalish. Put it by a third person. Put it by a third person. In Elul, when doomsday comes, when the deadline comes, we'll all be smarter. Then we'll know either lemafrea, it belonged to the buyer all the time, or the deal fell through and it's really the meichers for life always. And then we'll know who's going to eat the fruit. Go to the bank, yeah, go online, get the code, and get the money to you. That's a beautiful explanation for Rav Anan. And Rav Huna says something strange, that the moicher eats the fruit. Why is the moicher eats the fruit? There's a chash ribis. Says the Gemara, V'loi pligi, calm down, calm down, calm down. Rav Huna and Rav Anan, not only they're not difficult, they never even argued with each other. Why? Hade Omar, listen to the difference, spot the differences. Hade Omar, lechimaisis kni. Very good, like you said, Yaakov, originally. If the original agreement was, listen to this, very, very easy. Rav Huna spoke in a case not like the Mishnah. Rav Huna said, today's what, I think? Odor. I'm joking, I know so, yeah. Odor is now. If in 6 months' time you pay the other half, the apartment will belong to you, know when? In Elul. When you pay in Elul, the apartment will be yours in Elul. So there is no tzad whatsoever, any retrospective retro my grandma. There's no lemafrea, nothing. It will start in Elul. So of course the seller, can eat it all the way through. It's my apartment, 1.5% until he finishes the payment. Until he finishes the payment, there's no tzad that belongs to him whatsoever. And therefore what? Of course, the moicher can eat. The seller can eat it. Because he will only kick in the buyer when he finishes paying the last dime, Erev Rosh Hashanah. Only then, not before that. No problem. It's a very straight line. There are no two tzdodim here, no flow chart. V'she'en ken Ravanan. The Omar, you know, Ravanan spoke like our Mishnah. Lechimaisis, if you bring me the last payment, kni me'achshov. Aha. Then you have to buy it me'achshov. You're going to buy it from when? Lemafre, from Odor. And that breaks all hell loose. And that causes all the trouble. Because the entire 6 months from Odor till Elul, there is what? There is really question mark, huge question mark about 2 questions. Who is the owner? And is it Bechlal Halvor Mechira? Because if it's not Mechira, then he lent me money. I benefited from that early payment which came through. So then I cannot, I'm the loive, I cannot benefit as a moicher. What about the other side? Bad news. If the deal does go through, then I was nice to him to wait for the money. Then what? Then the moicher, cannot sit there. Nobody can sit there. Not the moicher, not the koiner, right? And therefore, yeah, if it's the koiner, then the koiner can't sit there if it's halvo, because it was a malve. There's always somebody here who's either a malve or a garnatar. Bad news. We're going to have it in the chart tomorrow. Don't worry. So Lemais, at the end of the day, in that case, what do? Either don't do it. If you do have to do it, bakasha. Put all the money of the 6 months in a separate account. Add Sheneda, who is the real owner. In 6 months' time, everything will be clear. It's not a, Gzera L'netzach Netzochim. Very good. And then we'll know who's going to cash. The Moicher, who's always the owner, or the Kohen, who's always the owner. Very good. Now, there will be a liberation explanation in Metzia Hashem tomorrow about a Braisa from Rav Safra, the Rabbi Chia. Thank you very much. Gishmak. And thank you to all our Torah Anytime viewers and YouTube, and first and foremost, everybody here and in Zoom. Thank you very much. And see you on Purim.